Hello and welcome to the Closing Beat, everybody. Happy Monday to you. How's it going out there? Hope the weather's fine for you, man. I keep seeing that come up. We apparently got some weather coming our way. Nothing we can't handle, though, but we are financial advisors here at Jazz Wealth, and we focus on dollars. We like to teach. We're one of the only advisors that teaches, and we're probably the only advisor where we only grow if you grow, right? We don't sell stuff. And so it's either we do good for you or we just don't do good, right? And we don't want that because we all want to grow. While other advisors are playing checkers, we are playing chess. And we're also one of the only advisors that is investing in clients that no other advisors want. And I say invest in you because we'll take clients of any size, all sizes, all dollars, all beliefs, and all that stuff, because if we can get you to grow, then our company will grow, right? We don't need to chase the rich people. Although rich people are welcome, you know what I mean? We're not gonna throw you away there. Anyways, our Wine and Wealth last week was a good one. What to focus on to start the new year, like financially. What do you do? Everybody likes to say, I'm gonna sit down and figure this out. No, you're gonna get overwhelmed. Let's just start with the basics, not basics, but let's start with a few things and get yourself rolling there. But anyways, we're here to talk about the stock market today, and actually a lot to talk about. For a Monday, pretty good, I think. If we look at the S&P here, officially the Santa Claus rally is over, right? Because we had 9 straight weeks that were up, and last week technically broke that, right? Because we had a down week there. That's just profit taking. We talked about that last week. We know that to be the case. It's actually really common. I have a slide here for you. Here is I went back 10 years. I didn't want to make a thing out of this, but if we look back, we say anytime there was a run up at the end of the year, did we see any kind of a pullback right there at the beginning of the next year? And yeah, we sure did. We saw right here going into 2016, right here going into 2018, going into 2019, just showing that there's a run up. And then right there at the beginning of the year, that first week or two, you see a little pullback. Ultimately, you can tell it had no real bearing on the long-term direction of the stock market. The worst was back here in going into 2022. We know that was a down year basically all year, and we've since recovered all of that. We now have the same thing happening here. It's just recovering a little bit faster, right? We had a run up into the end of the year, profit taking. Why? Because people say, hey, I'll just pay the tax on that 16 months from now. Or even better, I'll find losses throughout the year to offset those gains, and maybe then I won't have a tax bill, but I've got 16 months to do it. Whereas if they did it in December, you got like 3 months to do it. There's not much you can do there. So very, very common there. There are 28 other times that the S&P has lost or fallen in week number 1, okay? Average full year gain there is not all that attractive. It's only 1.6%, so that's below the average performance of the S&P. But we'll see. This kind of feels a little different here based on what's going on here. I'd also like to point out something, because I like doing this as we go rather than say, oh, see what the market did? That's what happens when anybody can do that. This is what I like to look at. We talked about this is the actual slide, that we were overbought going into 2024. In other words, 72, and it actually got up to 75% of all stocks in the S&P were overbought, right? And we've talked about this before. Every time it's happened, there's actually one more in here that we talked about as that was happening. So I like to show the same chart and just update it over and over again. And so we say, okay, we're overbought. Well, last week kind of helped solve that problem, right? A lot of those big tech stocks, the semiconductors, the things that were really, really strong, we saw that money come out, and now we only have, before today, we have 40% of the S&P overbought. That's a nice place to be, right? I would say for like a consistent uptrend. We don't want to be up here and paying where most stocks are just overbought anyways, and we're just going to pay more for the sake of paying more. We don't want to do that. So I like pointing out those things to say, look, we talked about it. Hopefully I got you to sit on your hands a little bit at the end of the year because we have the pullback. And maybe there's more to come. I don't know. Today was really strong, and obviously it's nice to see a recovery like this. Notice it stopped today right at the halfway mark. That's very, very normal. And think about that. It's like there's always, there's two political parties. There's two, glass half empty, half full. There's two of everything, right? People just get to that midway point and they're like, yeah, I believe more of this than this, and that's normal. We can debate that all day. But when you look at the S&P, it stops at the halfway point because inevitably you have half the people saying that's good and half the people going, it's not going past this, right? And that's what makes a market, right? For buyers and sellers and all that stuff. All right, we're going to talk about the Boeing thing going on here because this is another great example of what the headlines get you to do. But if you do a little research or just watch your boy here, on the show, we do a little research, we find out, oh, for the moment, maybe there's a little overreaction here. The Dow, if you noticed last night, futures open at 6 on Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern. And the Dow started off low. It was down like 130 points. The S&P was only down 4, and at one point was positive. NASDAQ positive. I'm like, what's going on with the Dow? Pretty easy to tell when you start. They go, well, I saw what happened with those airlines there. Boeing is going to start the day lower. Boeing is a high-price stock. The Dow is a price-weighted index. Therefore, when a higher-priced stock is weak, it's going to pull down the index. So it was really easy to see last night Boeing's going to be the culprit. And it may take down some of the others, but otherwise, that's what we have. All right. So if you don't know, just a door fell off the plane. You're just flying along and poof, the door fell off, right? It's like that. There's a TikTok out there where he talks about the front of the boat fell off. And he's like, well, how did that happen? And he goes, well, the front of it fell off. And he goes, well, is that supposed to happen? And he goes, well, of course not. It's supposed to be. So it's kind of a funny thing I saw today when they were like, the door fell off. It reminded me of that. One of the funny things about this, I thought, was they found the bolt that caused this issue in Oregon. I find that funny. We can find a bolt that fell from God knows how high in the sky, but we can't figure out all this other stuff. I was just talking to Cody about this, right? I was like, what's something where it's happened and we just can't believe we can't solve it? And he said the Malaysia plane thing. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of interesting. It's like there one minute and then it's gone the next. So we can't find this thing. I was maybe a little more political about it. I'm like, we can't figure out how drugs got into the White House, but we can find a bolt that fell out of the sky. So I thought that was really, really funny there. And Cody doesn't have much to say about that.
Oh, no, I was trying to figure out how you were going to fit that in the show when you were asking, and now.
Yeah, I didn't give it away, yeah. But, this was kind of interesting. Okay, so the headlines. All 737 MAXs are grounded. Oh, well, that's a big deal, isn't it? Because we remember when this happened before, the two planes crash and go, oh, that's kind of bad. Boeing falls apart. So you think, okay, that's a big deal. Now, in the aviation world, there's something called an airworthiness directive. And in this case, there's something called an emergency airworthiness directive. You can look it up. It's actually 2024-2-51. And it's actually just right on their site because it's the most current one. If you read through it, it's only 3 pages long, so it's not a lot to read. It doesn't say we're grounding these airplanes. It says these planes need to be taken out of service until they can be in expected or any corrective actions taken. So inspected or corrective actions taken. So you say, okay, fine. What was the issue? And how long will it take to inspect? 4 to 8 hours. Okay. And prior to this coming out, about 25% of all Alaska Airlines planes that they had already inspected them. But now they have to go back and do it again because they got to follow this rule. But anyways, so then you go, okay, how many planes is that? There are 218 737-9s that operate around the world. Okay. There are 171 MAX 9s that operate here that have been grounded because of this airworthiness directive there. So you say, okay, is that a lot? Like, what's this going to cause? So we start breaking it down. 218 total. Out of 171 of them, 65 of them are Alaska Airlines. It's kind of a big deal for them. 79 of them are United Airlines, but that's only 8% of their total fleet, right? It's a bigger deal for Alaska Airlines. Really quickly, you can see this is a big deal for them if this gets out of control. It's kind of a big deal for United Airlines, but not as bad there, right? And again, they're not grounded. They just have to be inspected and corrective actions taken. And so as they're already doing this is happening right now. As they're doing this, they go, ooh, we're finding some loose bolts, that same exact thing. We're finding them. Corrective action, tighten the damn thing, right? That's it. Tighten it and then maybe monitor it to see, does this what's happening here, right? So to figure this out. So at the moment, you think of this and you go, okay, is it really that big of a deal? Well, as the day progresses, notice people bought that, right? Of course, we gapped down. It was a big gap down today. But as we go, okay, Boeing fell apart here. Well, wait, it could be a big deal, but for right now, actually, that might be a buying opportunity. You look at Alaska Airlines. What happened there? How could it almost finish the day positive? The headline said, we're grounded. Oh, man, like you have this sick feeling in your stomach from when you were 8 and you got grounded. Oh, we now know it's a quarter of their fleet. They had inspected about a quarter of that prior to the AD coming out, which was less than 2 days. So it's really like, as you put the pieces together, you go, huh, I see what's happening. Remember, United Airlines, it's not such a big deal. It's 8% of their fleet. They could knock that out in probably one single day. As of now, okay, like right now I'm saying this, I don't know what's happening, right? So anything's possible, but just stay with me here. So United, positive for the day. Oh, okay, well, that makes perfect sense. I want to add one last thing because I thought about sort of performance here. When you look at Boeing, anytime it gaps down more than 5%, that's what happened today. See the gap. So that just means what we were talking about. So it was down before the market opened. The market opened and it said, what's the price of the stock right now? It's down here, a 5% difference. When Boeing gaps down 5% in one single day, it outperforms itself over the next 3 months, 6 months, and a year, right? So is it a buying opportunity? For right now, with the news that we have, we go, okay, we took the headline and said, you're scaring me. We went down and figured everything else out and said, okay, well, it's not like world-ending news for them. It's not great. I mean, obviously, we don't want to see that stuff happening, and there's a trust issue and all that, but it's not what the headlines make it seem. So that's a long way of me saying that's the real news. That's the numbers there. What comes of it, I don't know, but that's where we stand there. All right, anyways, moving around the rest of the market here, you got the NASDAQ rallying today. That's good. You got the Russell 2000 rallying today. That's fine after a pullback just about halfway there. Bonds trying to rally a little bit. They couldn't get anything going today. Interest rates have naturally pulled back have risen a little bit after their rally, so the price has pulled back a little bit, but nothing too chaotic just yet that has caused major concern. If you look at oil, you got news over the weekend. Saudi Arabia is essentially just changing the price of what they sell on a dollar basis, a barrel of oil to Asia. That's it. And it's because of a Forex transaction. So yes, it is that they're going to be selling cheaper because the demand has softened. Yes, that's there. I get that. But if you really break it down, there's about a $3 difference just because of a Forex difference there. So that this sort of change, again, the headline of, oh, they're selling oil cheaper wouldn't normally be front and center, but today it was because everybody wants to say that the demand for oil has fallen off the charts and we need to go electric and everything. So there's alternative agendas there. So a little bit of action there in oil today. All right. Moving on, we got banks kicking off earnings here today, Friday. So the first place you're going to want to see some activity is in the large banks themselves, or if you want to track the ETFs, XLF is the most popular that actually tracks the big banks, right? You can use others for regional banks and stuff, but that's what that one is. First up, you got Bank of America. They have the highest beat rate, meaning they beat on earnings more times than not. It's actually 73% of the time, but they average a slight decline when earnings are reported. So they report good news on the surface, but the stock tends to sell off a little bit, less than 1%, not a big deal. You also have Citigroup has the worst stats, right? 45% of the time they beat on earnings. So 55% of the time they don't, right? And the stock's average decline is about 2%. Now, if banks' earnings come out and you see the stocks falling, what else do you know there? What have we just learned? We started with this here today. Well, if you look at the financials, that sector is overbought. So people are anticipating good earnings. They're already making their plays. So if they have good earnings, they're just beat by a penny or whatever it is, and the stock goes down, is that a sign of something you missed? Is that a problem? No, not at all. It's profit taking. If it falls right around average, that's just simply profit taking. If it falls 5%, then clearly the bank said something, oh, we're losing business left and right or whatever happens. So just want to point that out because as we get to Friday, earnings season, we say unofficially begins with the banks. And so that's going to be a topic of our conversation. All right, before we get into stocks in the news, they say you can't beat the S&P. They say no one can beat the S&P. It's impossible. It's a man-made index that man made, but man can't beat its man-made index, right? It's not true, but there are a lot of people actually beating the S&P. And some of them, you may know their names. Let's take a look. Brian Higgins, here's a Democrat. His 2023 returns compared to the S&P, 238%. Hope you can see that. Mark Green. Well, actually, we got 3 Republicans here in the group here, 122%, 107%, 105%. Well done, guys. Seth, Ron, John, Richard, Blumenthal. Oh, he looks like a villain, man. That guy, he could play in the movies. 68%. There's Pelosi, 65%. Let's go all the way down here. SPY, 24.8%. It's a nice gain. That's a nice gain. All these Democrats and Republicans beat the stock market and consistently do. By the way, if you say, well, that's just 1 year, Dustin, let's take a look at Brian for just a second. Brian could essentially underperform the S&P for the rest of his life, for a full generation, and still average returns that are better than the S&P. So I get it. You're going to say, well, that's 1 year. Maybe somebody has a good year. We had a good year. We beat the S&P in some stuff. Actually, the last 4 years. But he doesn't actually have to really do anything. He could just invest in the S&P, and those returns with this year for an entire generation would still average more than the S&P. So before you go bashing people, look to your congressmen and women that Brian here will go down in history as someone who can beat the S&P, unless he ruins it from here. So rather fascinating to watch that. Pick your favorite congressman or woman and see what their returns were for the year. I noticed Mitch McConnell somewhere in here and Tommy Tuberville right here. Oh, they didn't beat the S&P. Marjorie Greene. I didn't see that one before. Look at them go. Is that right or is that wrong? It's just a nice way of me bringing it up so you guys can all tear each other up in the comments, huh? Take the bomb or the grenade, throw it into the room and say, have at it. All right, before we get to your questions here, let's do stocks in the news. We talked about Boeing. No need to go back to that. A lot of retail names here today that are reporting based on their holiday season. So Abercrombie & Fitch says strong. Holiday sales were strong. Stock was higher here today, of course, based on that news. I would also point out Crocs. Kind of fitting today, actually. Crocs up 20%. They said the same thing. Crocs, they raised their entire year's guidance based on their sales through the holiday season. Why? That's what happened there. A couple others here. We got Lululemon. You guys buying your spandex pants, getting back to the gym and everything. Lululemon says for the fourth quarter, our earnings will likely come in a little ahead of expected. So sticking with the retail game there. And I don't know why this is in the news, but Tesla, I forget her name, but the company spokeslady, she says, well, Elon Musk has never failed a drug test, and we test him regularly. Why do I care about that? What are we doing there? I'm not sure. All right, I'll take your questions if you have any. Not so much in the way of earnings coming up tomorrow, but as the week gets on, you'll see a few names splatter in there. And then Friday with the big banks. If you want to watch Jazz After Dark here tonight, I'm going to do a deep dive on the what? Oh, okay. There we go. Well,
yeah, your winner from last week. That's kind of what I'm excited. You've been pumped about it. Your guy, Bubba. Bubba's your winner from last week. He's not a client, so he's the rightful owner of $100 from us. Congrats to him. He's been on the board the last few weeks. You've been pulling for him, so congrats to him.
Yeah, Bubba finally got it, man.
Yeah, jazzwell.com/guess the Dow to play Guess the Dow. By the way, looked up Brian Higgins. Not a guy you'd think that could beat the S&P. You know, just when you look at him, you're just like, wow, look at this guy. You wouldn't think he could, but he did.
Are you judging a book by its cover?
100%. Yeah, I'm big on.
I got 238 over here.
Yeah. No, I mean, he seems to be pretty good at what he's doing. It's just crazy. He's also leaving office early this year, so makes sense. You know, let's crush it before we go. You know?
Yep. Okay. So so in that case, if he likely will underperform from here on out.
Yeah.
But he will still go down as a person in history who can beat the market.
He might hold the record.
Is that a record?
It might be. For a politician, it's got to be.
I'd like to know what his balance was.
Ooh.
You can look that up. There's a site that has that, but like, is that 238% on like $5,000? I don't think so, by the way. But 238%, Well done, Brian. And he's retiring. So what a great retirement thing. And do you wonder how they do that? Like, what do you think Brian's strategy is? Well, what is his overall strategy?
Diamond hands, buy the dip.
Buy the dip. AMC, Bitcoin,
yeah,
all that stuff. All right. Well, tonight on Jazz After Dark, we're going to talk about the desperate things that you'll need to have in order to retire early. That question's coming up a lot again. It's funny how when the stock market goes up and is strong, people go, I'm retiring early. When the market's down, like 2022, I don't think I got that question one time. So we're going to go over the things there for you because I'm pretty passionate about that, the things that you'll have to have. I'll show you some examples. We'll go through all of that. In previous Jazz After Darks, I did some where you get to know me a little bit, who's Dustin, what's going on there. But I'll take your questions now if you have any. Otherwise, I'll get back to work because it's about all the time they allow me to be out of the office there. Is Elon Musk on something? Or even if he isn't on something, you're concerned. I mean, do we care? What do we care? He shows up to work, seems to be dedicated to his job. I don't care what he does at night. No, you have like 8 kids or something too. Did we censor your comment? Yeah, there's an automated thing. Depending on what you said, it may have been. I don't see... Oh, back at the beginning. It's not that we can't. So the wrong people are being hired, promoted, competence, press, adherence, taking back seats, and prime safety critical. Oh, you're going back. Yeah, it wasn't censored, though. Bubba Gump, man. Yeah, Bubba's the winner there. Do we still get interest for cash being used for cash-secured puts? Do you still get interest for the cash being used? You're saying the cash that is securing the put. You're not using it, right? So in your case, you sold a put. You have used that cash. That cash itself is technically invested. It's not, it is just being used as collateral. So no, you would not get interest on that cash while it is securing the put that you have. Yeah. That's a good question, though, because it doesn't show that way in your platform, does it? It's just securing the position. It's not necessarily in the position. I gotcha. Yeah. Grinding Retire says, oh, what do we got here, man? We got OG. I'm sorry, I typed in OCN there. Good day for them. A happy new year to you, too, as well. I'm suspect on, and this is just, I don't have anything good to offer here, but if the stock market has a really good day and a beaten down stock has a great day, does that mean that there's something exciting about the company, or was that just broad index buying to some degree, which then caused a little bit of short selling or short covering? You know what I mean? You'd rather see that type of day that it had today on a day where the market was just blah, not much going on, and then you go, oh, there's something there, right? People are excited now. Yeah. On Fidelity, you do, see the cash being used in the position. I don't know how, so Schwab bought TD Ameritrade. In TD Ameritrade, it used to not do that, but I can't speak for them now. I haven't seen it there. Stock picks for 2024. Actually, I did a whole theming thing. Maybe the first day of the year, Joe. It was on the first, the second day of the year, but it was on the first show of the new year there. PayPal waking up. There you go. Yeah. Oh, you're saying Fidelity leaves the cash as a cash balance. Well, that doesn't make sense because what cash are you? Oh, you're saying you're using the cash off to the side. You're getting interest on that. But the dollars that you use to buy or to sell the puts, that's what you're talking about. Cool. I like it. Were semiconductors mentioned? Today, no. I didn't talk much about them. How long you guess high yield savings accounts keep up to 5 to 4% interest? How long do they keep it up there? Well, it's usually, so I don't know if you know this, but in high interest savings accounts, there's usually a committee, and the committee might be automated. The committee could be 2 or 3 people. I don't know. It just has to be more than one analysis. Usually it's within 2 weeks of the federal rate decision, right? So when they adjust rates, or if they do or not, within 2 weeks, they will have to adjust that rate. So it's really based on them. It's not based on me. We hit that time. That's how you know I've gone too long. If I go long enough, and then an ad starts, it thinks like, oh, people are still here. I love it. All right, well, I'll get out of the way then so you guys can watch the ad and we can make our 8 cents there. You guys enjoy the rest of your day or evening and hunker down. Those of you down here are going to be dealing, everywhere it seems, going to be dealing with some weather. We'll see how it goes. I'm sure it'll be fine, but you guys enjoy. We'll see you tomorrow.